What's going on, everybody? This Afro think tank. Pan-Europeanism is uniting while black and brown people are fighting. That's what's happening right now. So every couple weeks, right, we hear a story about what some POC did to a black person, right? Or what some black person did to some POC. And as the news cycle is usually, a week, maybe. I think social media, we can give it a week or two. Usually on the legacy media, it was a week, right? But due to the multipolarization of media, I'll say about 2 weeks the story stays in the news. And those that are in power understand that humanity at this point has a TikTok mindset, right? What does that mean? Short attention spans, all right? Short attention spans have been cultivated by apps like TikTok, Vine, doing it for the gram, things like that, and human beings, our children, they're being programmed to have a short attention span. So even if something terrible happens in the news, we'll talk about it for a week or two, and then something else will happen. Now, if I am a strategist, and if I'm a white supremacist, and I understand this, and I have the power to manipulate at least certain portions of the media, I'm going to make sure that the movements that I make as a white supremacist is not advertised to the global majority. Okay? And if my friends own the legacy news networks, if my friends own the social media platforms, I'm going to make sure the algorithm doesn't push forward, or doesn't highlight what it is that we are doing, right, as white supremacists on the planet to control the global majority, right? That's what I would do if I was a white supremacist. A smart, financially secure white supremacist with plenty of money to burn. And currently, right now, that's happening. So, right now, the big talk is white people found a clearly predatory Asian man innocent of killing a black person, right? This Asian man has an history of being a white supremacist in yellowface. All right, unapologetically white supremacists in yellowface. And just like a lot of other POCs or white people who are not black, they salivate at the moment that they can take out a dragon, right? A dragon is a black man. We are dragons, you understand? Majestical creatures that's envied and awed, but to defeat one makes you the ultimate warrior, right? It's the ultimate win, right? So if you notice, every couple weeks, in a country full of 35 to 400 million people, right? They will scour the country for a story, and then they will plaster it to make that story, that isolated incident, seem like it is the entire country, right? So right now, the entire country is talking about this Asian man who got away with killing a black man. Right? Then we go to our back database and we think about all the times Asian people have disrespected black people and how Asian people were inserted into our communities via white people. So white people insert these Asian people into our communities after programming these Asian people to be weak-minded racist idiots, right? And then these weak-minded Asian idiots affect our black communities when we welcome them wholeheartedly, right? And so we have to deal with the tricks and the tactics of that white man. You see, I'm always focused on the enemy and his movements. I don't get distracted on the tactics because I understand we can go ahead and address every single side effect of white supremacy. And we can attack that, and we can boycott that, and we can fight that. We can get angry about that. We can get emotional about that. But that's a waste of energy. Why? Because we're still not tackling the puppet master. We only attack the puppet, right? But we never cut the strings from the puppet, and we never attack the puppet master to make it so he can't manipulate the puppets with his fingers, right? So while all that's going on, real white supremacy, pan-Europeanism, okay? Pan-Europeanism that can only be combated by pan-Africanism, all right? Because pan-Europeanism consists of all white people in every political and ideological sector of the planet, economic, political, they gather together in groups and they discussed how they can continue to subjugate the planet on behalf of white men, not white women. Because keep in mind, white women are also the enemy of white supremacy. White women are also enemies of a pan-Europeanism, because it's really pan-white male Europeanism. Pan-misogynistic white Europeanism. That's what it is. It doesn't really include white women, even though they are part of the apparatus, but they are reserved to be second-class citizens, and those that don't mind being second-class citizens to their white master male overlord will participate and be just as vicious, if not more vicious, than that white male, white supremacist, all right? They're having meetings in Europe right now discussing how to get rid of brown and black people from Europe and from their colonies that they, which are by all definitions of what they create, criminal illegal aliens, white people, all right? They have this thing called reverse migration, right? Reverse migration. Keep in mind, white people for centuries have had meetings where they got together despite their differences, despite their ethnic differences, despite their grievances towards each other as white people, despite their political differences with each other, despite their economic differences with each other, they all agree on one thing. White people must remain on top globally, right? United Nations is a pan-European organization. NATO is a pan-European organization, okay? The International Monetary Fund is a pan-European economic institution. All these giant government, non-governmental organizations that have trillions of dollars of dark money or what they consider valued currency, all of these are pan-European organizations created by old white men who have the leverage to do so at a certain period of time, right? And right now, you have the Customs and Border Patrol officer that was in Minnesota that was in charge of the unit that killed that white woman and that white man, right? That white man that was carrying arms legally, per the United States Constitution. Or that white woman who wasn't being a threat to those officers who was leaving the area, wasn't under arrest, wasn't detained, but got killed because she was a threat, right? The person in charge of that person was in Europe talking about how these brown people need to be sent back to their countries. Re-migration, right? These are all white supremacists. Our government is white supremacists. We have government agencies that are controlled by white supremacists. Now, everybody within these agencies are not white supremacists, all right? But the leadership are white supremacists. They are unapologetically white supremacists. So while you're talking about boycotting Asians for what the one Asian did, which I understand. I mean, it's not like I don't understand it, right? Because we should be patronizing each other and being B1, being pro-black, being black first, buying and utilizing our own economic power to uplift us and put us above those who subjugate us. Because we, as black people, have the power to literally deconstruct white supremacy, all of its global institutions, and defeat them wholeheartedly, completely and totally, through battle of attrition. We have all the mechanisms, power, and the energy to do so, but we choose not to because we prefer the convenience that we gather within the societies which we are subjugated. We're comfortable, all right? And that's the issue. But I just want you to know why all of you guys are paying attention to shit that don't matter, right? And I'm not saying that the Asian thing, I'm not saying that don't matter. I'm talking about other shit, right? I'm talking about diaspora wars because your ego gets mad at somebody else's ego because y'all just happen to be the same. Black people are right now in the mirror yelling at each other, distracted, while we're being stabbed in the back by POCs and white people. And we refuse to turn around and deal with the issue because it's much easier to look at that mirror and attack ourselves. That's what's happening in the diaspora wars, right? But I just need you to know, while you're doing all that shit, while you are gathering all the energy you got as a black person, like, I want to fight those people over there, the ones you need to be fighting, the puppet master, are having meetings to discuss how it is they're going to continue to subjugate black people. In our faces. But you're not concentrating on that because you rather listen to people on YouTube talking about shit that don't fucking matter. I don't give a shit what some singer who's meant to entertain me is doing with their personal lives right now. Today's not the least. We're not living in an era where that shit matters. I don't give a shit about Drake's feelings. I don't care. I don't care with some female celebrity who she dating right now. None of that shit fucking matters. None of that shit fucking matters. Who any singer, rapper is dating or whatever social issues that they have with some other individual, none of that shit matters. But that's all the energy we be putting into. We put all the energy into that shit. What some goddamn British person said to some African American doesn't fucking matter. What some African person, some uneducated African continental African said to some African American, right? Or what some African American said to some Caribbean, none of that shit fucking matters. I like to talk about shit that matters. Right now we have white supremacists who don't get along all the time, just like black people. Some of them don't get along all the time, right? They're currently having meetings trying to figure out, okay, how to subjugate you even further. How to stop white supremacy from dying. How to slow down black progress, black upliftment, black agency, black power. They're literally having the people who are in every administration on the planet that matters. People who have all the money. People who you buy all your products from. People who you buy all your services from. People who make the laws that force you to live a certain way. They are having meetings together, globally, white people, people you don't consider racist. The people black Coonarian Republicans pretend like don't exist. The people FBA panders to because they don't mind anything that they do. They just care about being called a kata, which they've never been called a kata in a day in their fucking lives. They just care about being called a kata by some mysterious African that they have never heard it from before. They're just going to have faith that it was said to them. Black people are so worried about being disenfranchised by other black people, not realizing that's reinforcement and that actual activity is what's scaring white supremacy. And we got black people actively fighting against what scares white people the most, which is black unity. Black economic stitching together. We are stitching our economies together. Black people in America, the most prominent, powerful group of black people on the planet with the most money on the planet, are currently right now economically connecting themselves to the most resource-rich continent on the planet that just so happens to be their homeland and just so happens to be their people. It's happening. Whether you believe it or not, you see a lot of shit you see online. These are small little things that's happening in the world, but there's a bigger thing that's not online. The bigger thing is African Americans in droves, Caribbeans in droves are connecting to the continent of Africa. Governments of Africa, despite all the corruption that happens within their countries, you know, which is undifferent from all the corruption happening in current United States government, you know, which is not indifferent from what's happening in the British government, every single one of them. I mean, well, not British, the European governments, every single one of them. Not different from what's happening in all the Asian countries that has a political part. Like, it's all happening everywhere. So there's nothing especially unique about the corruption in Africa. It's just they have their own form of corruption like everybody else does. But besides that, right now, currently, those governments are connecting themselves to the Caribbean, are connecting themselves to Africa. See, African Americans, we don't have a nation we control. We are part of this nation. But the Caribbeans have nations they control. Those are black nations. They are detaching themselves from their former colonizers via legislation. We have direct flights from West African countries to the Caribbean now. We have African companies who own planes, right, on different sides of the world, connecting with each other, right, supporting each other, and opening up travel from one part of the black world to the next. We have visas being lifted in continental African countries so that Africans can fly to each other and do commerce unabated by a bunch of legislation that will slow them down. This is happening everywhere on the continent. Yeah, there's bad shit happening. We got some civil wars going on that's perpetuated by the Asians and perpetuated by Europeans. Keep in mind, every bad thing that's happening in Africa is perpetuated by white people and Asians. Because we have weak-minded Africans who need to get resources from them, or think they need to get resources from them, which they don't. Because they refuse to look to their left, to their right, to their brother and sister. But all that's being changed. All that's being fixed. White people see that. So they got to have another conference. They got to have the same conference they had when they decided they was going to carve up Africa and attack us simultaneously at the same time, discombobulating every goddamn great African nation that didn't have Gatling guns and cannons. They are currently getting together right now, trying to gather their horde, their European hordes, to figure out how they're going to try to re-steal Africa the same way they did before the transatlantic slave trade, so they can uplift their European community from the two plagues that almost took them all out. So now there's another plague about to take them out. All right, that plague is called low birth rate. That plague is called anti-sperm activity. All right, I made that up. That plague is called they not having babies. They have a plague of babies. They have a plague of old people. All right, they have their own types of plagues coming along. The plague of the sun. The literal sun is a plague upon them right now. And they're fighting nature, and they're fighting us, because they see their inevitable demise, and they're getting together. All of them. All of them. These rich, well-to-do pieces of shit, white Anglo-Saxon barbarians, are getting together trying to figure out how they're going to survive this shit. Because their forefathers who gave them all that shit didn't think that far into the future. But I just want you to know, while you're distracted about all the bullshit, there's real shit happening. You see them? White supremacy not playing with you. It's not a game to them. It's all or nothing. They're in a battle of attrition. All right? Just like that. What you gonna do? What are you gonna focus on as a content creator who's supposed to be in the conscious pro-black community? You gonna keep focusing on little shit that don't matter? Yeah, it matters on the local level. It matters to the family who lose their lives because of bigotry and racism. Yeah, we understand that's micro shit. We talking about macro shit. If you want to fix the micro, you got to fix the macro and then let that shit trickle down. But, you know, I understand a lot of people to concentrate on what white people are doing, to look at boring C-SPAN, to look at news that's not placed in front of you, to put forth effort to find out what's going on, is not something most people want to do. They just rather get temporarily pissed off about some shit that offend them on TikTok, instead of paying attention to the real world, what the hell is really going on. Instead of paying attention to the tools that we got to defeat the evil that is clearly happening right now. That evil that's controlling us. The evil people, the orc demons that's currently controlling the planet right now. Orc, demon, barbarian, subhumans that's playing in our faces while we are distracted talking about shit that's inconsequential to the grander community. Or when we do react to these things, we just react predictably with emotion. If you react predictably with emotion every time the same type of news come out, guess what? Your enemy knows exactly what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, because you've proven it every time. So yeah, I just need you guys to pay attention to real shit just for 5 minutes. I understand you want to see you want to be entertained. I understand that you work all day and you just want to relax and you want to have something on TV you can watch and be the hee caca and caca too. You can do all that. I understand that. I understand that there's some shit on the internet that you just can't comprehend, some of you, depending on what your level of education is. You don't understand the words that's coming out of these people's mouths. I understand how boring news looks to you, how boring international relations looks to you. I understand how boring that shit. You just want to see something with hip-hop in it. You just want to see that. You just want to see some YouTuber beef with another YouTuber. That's what you want to look at. That's what you want to pay attention to. Well, you remain distracted while your enemies continue to take stuff from you. While the rest of us warriors, who are naturally warriors, continue to fight against those who mean to do us harm. So anyway, I'm gonna bring this. I can bring the information to you. What you do with it is up to you. But I'm fully confident there's enough people like myself who are paying attention to what's really happening, and we are making the necessary moves within our personal lives and our professional lives to make sure we combat all things white supremacy has to do on their last gas. So I'm confident in our future. But for the rest of you who will be left behind, and there will be many of you left behind, it's going to be sad, but it's necessary, because we have to trim the fat. We have to. And if you are the fat, you must be trimmed, whether you believe it or not. We only got time for lean meat here, because we need the protein in order so we can build the muscles of black supremacy. Right? You heard you heard exactly what I said. The muscle of black supremacy, so we can fight against this white supremacy and show them what black excellence looks like, and who can be proper stewards of this earth and humanity, which we've already proven in the past that we can be that when we are in our frame. Anyway, you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. It's Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
Hey y'all, for those that don't know, CPAC is having their conference in Hungary right now, and Viktor Orban made a speech to CPAC. They chose Budapest because Viktor Orban is a right-wing authoritarian. He is friends with Putin. He has changed Hungary to be more of a conservative state where he criticizes the media. It's very Trumpian, very anti-establishment. They talk about anti-immigration and how it changed the fabric of the nation, and how America needs to turn back to conservatism. I mean, he talks about a lot of things, but it's eerily similar to what we're hearing from right-wing pundits and politicians. I mean, some of the rhetoric that he's saying is how 2024 is a decision year for America, and that we must align the troops and come for a common goal to, restore order in the U.S. He even mentioned George Soros. I mean, it's the same stuff, and how progressives and liberals want to alienate the Western way of life that they love so much. So, we're communist or socialist, whatever they call us, that we're anti-American. And so that's what the extreme right side of the Republican Party is hearing right now in Hungary. I highly recommend that you guys read up on what's going on over there. It's not really being broadcast on the news. Formula and, primary elections are kind of top of the news cycle. So the CPAC in Budapest is happening right now, and a lot of dangerous rhetoric is being spread. So read up, y'all.
So, in case you're wondering what inspires today's Republican Party, here's something to consider. You know how when an organization wants to inspire its customers, it will invite a speaker that embodies its values and its principles? CPAC, which is the largest conservative conference in the United States, has invited this man right here, Viktor Orban, to speak at their Texas event. Orban has been president of Hungary since 2010, and since then, the country has seen changes in its constitution to allow for anti-LGBTQ plus policies, for policies anti-media, for policies that silence dissidents and political opponents, and most gravely, the compression of the freedom and independence of the judiciary. After being invited to the CPAC conference, Orban gave another speech where he talked about wanting to prevent Hungary from becoming a mixed-race country. His administration also joked about the use of gas chambers against Jewish people. The speech was so offensive that one of Orban's advisors quit in protest. Now, in the midst of all this, do you think CPAC and the Republican Party rescinded their invitation to Orban? Of course not. The invitation still stands. In fact, Matt Schlapp, who's the chair of CPAC, invited us all to just listen to the man speak, listen to what he has to tell us. Matt, I don't think any of us with common sense want to hear anything else that Orban has to say. In fact, at this point, I don't think anybody needs any more hints as to how the Republican CPAC wants to change America. People, it's time to vote this man out of our lives. And as always, stay informed.
The greatest threat in Europe, and I'd say it was the greatest threat in the United States until about 30 days ago, is that you've had the leaders of the West decide that they should send millions and millions of unvetted foreign migrants into their countries. That is the biggest threat to Europe. And frankly, it remains, by the way, the biggest threat to the United States because, yes, we've got 4 years of President Trump's leadership, but I guarantee you, if the Democrats ever get power again, they're going to try to do it again.
I'm here in Portugal, in a town about 90 minutes south of Porto, for one of Europe's biggest far-right conferences, where the theme is remigration, the racist ideology that advocates for the mass deportation of immigrants and non-white citizens. As well as hearing from elected officials and far-right activists from across Europe, there are also a large cohort of figures from the US, most notably Greg Bovino, former Border Patrol leader who became the face of Donald Trump's hardline deportation efforts.
It's always good to be with like-minded folks, especially individuals that understand, like Martin or Ava here, that understand the depth and the scope of the problem and what awaits and what Europe faces with such a problem if it's not addressed rather rapidly. Same thing for the United States. Martine and I talked Same problems, same issues, same solutions.
But as the conference takes place in the building behind me right now, the speakers talking about their free speech being trampled on and activists being censored on social media, myself and the rest of the media here to cover the event have been relegated to a tent in a car park outside the building, preventing us from witnessing what is happening inside. Conference organizer Martin Sellner told me the decision to block media access was to protect the privacy of attendees who he said may lose their jobs if they were revealed to be attending a remigration conference. But ahead of the event, I was able to witness activists from across Europe, including Ireland, the UK and France, walking in, as well as members of Patriot Front, a white supremacist group from the US. So while this is meant to be a conference about free speech, I can't tell you exactly who's here or what they're talking about. I'm here in Portugal and
Did Pete Hegseth just side with World War II Germany? Kind of sounds like it. He went to Normandy today for the 82nd anniversary of the D-Day landing when Allied troops liberated northern France from the Germans in World War II. Hegseth went and talked about a new invasion on the beaches and how it was happening from people with dark skin from dark countries taking over Europe. The problem is the people invading the beaches were not the bad guys. They were the good guys. It was us invading the beaches in Normandy. It was the good guys coming. The people on the beaches that were entrenched were the bad guys. Hegseth literally turned it all around and claimed that Normandy was about evil people coming to the beaches. It was us. It was our guys. They were not evil. But also promoting a World War II German ideology of people with color should not be coming to Europe because they're poisoning the land and, watering down the beautiful genetic stock of white Europeans. That's not the kind of thing a U.S. Defense Secretary should be saying, and he certainly shouldn't be saying it at Normandy at a D-Day anniversary. Absolutely disgusting defiling of American history, of European history, of world history. Really, really, really disgusting.
For those of you who did not see Marco Rubio's speech he gave to European leaders in Munich, I want to break it down for you because it is one of the most white nationalist, imperialist, climate change denying speeches I've heard in my lifetime. He frames the history of our nation as purely a European product, does not mention black or indigenous people once, and he openly calls for a return to colonial expansion. And you can see that in the Trump administration currently with their ambitions in Venezuela and Cuba. He is talking about 17th century and 18th century racist colonial expansion as a good thing. And you can see down here, people applaud him for it. And he eventually jumps the shark, goes beyond the gaslighting language of cultural heritage and proud European traditions, and just straight up calls people in Gaza barbarians at a certain point. So just openly racist, genocidal language here. And he brings this to an existential level when he calls the efforts to stop or mitigate the worst parts of climate change a climate cult, and insists on returning to an era of massive fossil fuel extraction, burning of coal, and ties it to our need for security, our need for energy independence. And anyone who knows anything knows that this is a doomsday plan. If we go down this road of white nationalism and the burning of coal and fossil fuels, there will be no history. There won't be white history, there won't be black history, there won't be indigenous history, because we will all perish under this regime. So I encourage you to watch Marco Rubio's speech, to know what we're up against, to know why climate defiance fights the way it does, to stop a fascist, ecocidal, racist regime.
The EU Parliament is asked to do a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk, and this is what happens.
Madam President, dear colleagues, the murder of political activist Charlie Kirk, a husband, loving father, and patriot, has shocked the world. We must strongly condemn political violence and rhetoric that incites violence. Please stand with me in reflection and prayer in his honor, and I yield the rest of my time for a moment of silence. Yes,
I'm going to show you two videos of the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, one talking about Venezuela, one talking about the UK, and just listen to how white supremacy plays out. Listen.
It is clear, though, which the White House has said, is that America carried out strikes on Venezuela and captured their leader, Maduro. Some politicians in this country have already condemned that. Do you?
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
If the US invades Greenland, then what?
Well, the future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. And for Greenland and the future of Denmark only. And Denmark is a very close ally of the UK, both in Europe and in NATO. And it's very important that we're clear about the principles applicable here. Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark must determine the future of Greenland and nobody else.
Wow, powerful words. The people of Denmark and the people of Greenland shall decide their future and nobody else. What about Venezuela? Oh, I have to talk to Trump and see what he wants the future of Venezuela to be. And this is hilarious. The Prime Minister of the UK saying that he always values international laws. The UK that invaded nearly 90% of the world's countries. This is white supremacy. And just know that none of this is in defense of Maduro. Because these people have taken out leaders that we voted for that are trying to do good for the country. And they've also taken out dictators that they help get into power after the dictator turns on them. But the point is that they always find a way to destabilize and destroy our homes. But when it comes to their countries and their sovereignties, well, you cannot do that. And as Trump talks about invading more Latin American countries, Europe is mostly concerned with themselves. Seriously, we people of color really need to start figuring out a way to protect ourselves from this white supremacy. I am tired of seeing this history play over again and again and again. Send this to anyone who doesn't believe that we're in a new era of colonization. History is very much repeating itself.
I got a remigration idea. I got a remigration idea that will solve the world's problems. We need all white Europeans to remigrate to Europe. That'll solve your population problem. That'll solve all your problems you're having around the world if you, all of you, collectively, all of you colonizers, take your asses back to where you come from. All you Australian Europeans, go, if you have an immigration problem, right where you are, if you're upset that there's not as many white people where you are, you should get on a plane and go back to where you come from, Europe, where there's more people like you. If you have a population problem because there's not enough people having babies, how about you go to Europe where there's more white people you can have babies with? Yeah, you South Africans, you got a problem with the way things are going with you as a race. How about you, all you Dutch, you British? How about you go back to Europe where you come from? If you went back to Europe where you come from and you fellowship with your brothers and sisters over there, you can make more babies. How about you white Venezuelans? You white Latinos, as you take you and your Spanish language, take you and your Spanish language and your Spanish culture. How about you remigrate back to Europe, right? Remigrate back to Spain. That way you can bolster your Spanish community. Y'all can have more babies. All you white Americans who threw away your British culture to the point to where you fought a whole war to get away from your homeland. How about you remigrate back to Europe? If you remigrated back to Europe, you wouldn't have any problem. You can live around as many white folks as you can. And you can help those white Europeans fight back against what they see as immigration with the brown people. If you left where brown people are from and went back to where white people are from, and then you can go ahead and tell those brown people to go back to where they from. Once you go back to where you from. That's the solution. White people from around the world in colonies that you're not from. White people, to solve a lot of your problems, your birth rate problems, how about y'all coagulate yourselves in Europe where you're from? Leave the homelands of those people who you subjugate and take your ass back to Europe where you're from. Go have babies in Europe. Go build up Europe. Go develop Europe using your white culture that you love so much. Go back to Europe where you're from and go develop Europe and go save Europe from the hordes and hordes and hordes of brown and POCs coming from the lands that you subjugated, right? And you go ahead and you make sure you go back to Europe where you're from, by the way. Let's keep on saying that. All you white people who like to rename yourselves, go back to Europe. Israelis, you fake Semitics, take your ass back to go back to Ukraine, go back to Germany, go back to France, go back to Poland where you from, and build your Israelite homeland there. How about you do that? This will solve all the world's problems. If all you white people from the globe who like to take on different ethnic titles because for some reason, you want white supremacy, but you don't want to be white. You don't want to participate in white culture, so you steal everybody else's culture and pretend to be it. Take your ass back to Europe where you go remigrate. All you Europeans who got a problem with where you from, right? Well, where you were born because your forefathers went there, raped, murdered, and pillaged, and you somehow believe in your head that you're from there and you have some sort of inherent right to be there as an OG. You're not an OG. Take your white ass back to your OG land of Europe where you can fight with your other Europeans, right? As much as you want, and you can be as white as you want. You can eat your dry ass, non-seasoned food as much as you want. You don't gotta participate in any black culture, any Latino culture, right? You ain't gotta participate in any Arab culture, any African culture. You don't have to have any of the cultures of the brown, melanated, black majority of the planet. You don't have to do none of that. You can go back to Europe. You have the money, you have the capability, and those white people need you because they need more women. They need more fighting age men, because currently right now all the fighting age men are killing themselves with this Ukraine and Russian war. All of you can go back to where you come from. You can all remigrate back to Europe, and you won't have none of these problems that you guys are dealing with and all the colonies that you guys are too weak to continue to control. Think about that.
Fuck them. Again. Fuck them. Them and you is not friend. Fuck them. Them no need to be in your life. So why you making them cause you nothing but trouble and strife? Fuck them.
The texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan!
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.